the suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
One of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Guess who's returned from Europe? I'm fucking exhausted, but we had a big time. We have a big recap. I'm under the understanding that the audio got removed somewhere through, so we've got a doozy of an episode for you. We're recapping March Madness week or two. We've got our Spannabis recap. We've got what's ahead, but we also have a little bit of a Kip eating crow, which is a very rare occasion. But before we get into any of that, let's give a quick shout out to our favorite sponsors in our local communities. We are sponsored this week by Mr. B's Liquor. Y'all know them because you've heard them on our socials. They have 3 locations across the Denver metro area. Mr. B's Ballpark, right there off Park Avenue near Coors Field. You're going to want to know them intimately before leading your way into a Rockies game this year. That team's going to make you want to drink. They have a location out at Stanley Marketplace. Shout out to all of our suburban moms in the Park Hill neighborhood. You're going to love it dearly. Great selection of wine and things of that nature. And their newest location, the location in the Golden Triangle, the location that makes you want to pull your hair out if you have to deal with traffic or our local government. Fucking Christ. We'll dive into the mayoral debates later in this season, but we have a kick-ass episode. Also, our audio is maybe a little bit wonky tonight, but just stick with us. Maybe turn down the audio on your commute in if we do get, in fact, a little bit antsy in the pantsy. But if you're feeling a little antsy in your pantsy, a nice little shot of Pink Whitney from our friends over at Mr. B's would take care of that. And if that doesn't take care of it, our friends at Bar Green Ellingson. While this ad read doesn't appeal to everyone, it definitely appeals to our friends in the industry. Bar Green Ellingson, how we know them is through a friendly basis, and that's how you want to know your sales reps are those that look out for you and your business. Adam and the family over at Bar Green here in the local community, they help service restaurants, whether it's your first restaurant, whether it's your 9th. You know them because they take care of business. They bring you the best products available on the market, and they will also answer in a rapid speed. We've known them for taking care of our favorite restaurants in the community, but they're just good fucking people. And what we like to do is align ourselves with good fucking people. And so if you're looking, maybe you're trying to open your first restaurant, maybe you have a food truck that you've been stewing on, but you need a couple more items to fill out that ghost kitchen or commissary, check out Bar Green Ellingson. They've got all the supplies for you. Chris, that was a pretty good ad read for me, playing off fucking so much jet lag. I'm exhausted. How are you?
I missed you.
I missed you too.
I mean, it's good to have you back stateside, and you arrived unscathed. So I'd say, all in all, you did well.
Chris, I know what you're saying, and you're right. I missed you too, and I have something I want to say to you, Chris. I apologize. I got off the plane. I asked you to do something for our March Madness bracket, and maybe I didn't give you enough instructions or whatever it may be, but I apologize. I'm sorry for going online and just burying you. I didn't use any epithets, but I'm pretty sure I called you like every word in the book. And so I want to just say thank you for working while I was on, we'll call it vacation because they're pretty close. But I want to say thanks, and I want to say I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It was probably a combination of 90 million things, but you did the best you could, and I didn't give you enough tools to get the job done, so you were set up to fail, and so I'm sorry. But, man, you really fucked that bracket up.
I accept your apology.
You really fucked that bracket up. We've had a kick-ass 2 weeks.
Yes. Are we moving on from the bracket escapade to dive into Spannabis, or are we going to touch on the bracket?
How do you want to do it? Should we do bracket? Let's do bracket first.
Because you just apologized.
Yeah.
So let's clear the air here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, skin looks great, very moist due to the humidity and all the close proximity to the Mediterranean Sea. Man, we have seen some gnarly fucking matchups throughout. I'm glad we shook it up. It's pissed off a lot of our DMs. Look like a hooker's crotch. They are on fucking fire, Chris. We can't find a positive remark. Everyone's like flabbergasted that it's a bakery versus a fine dining, or a sushi restaurant versus a taco truck. But by God, we've seen great results. I think, we'll separate the chaff from the wheat as it gets through. Yeah, isn't that right? That's how you say it.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. We'll
cream of the crop.
Yeah, we will. We'll get there. But at the same time, man, it's been a doozy since we all sat down last.
It has been. And, thankfully, while I did slightly mess up the whole bracket postings.
That's a admission of guilt.
I did do a few things correct. First of all, placed the right matchups, which were some great fucking matchups. Some of those came down to the wire. And, I was without training wheels, A guy who doesn't do social media every day, it was just like my father let go of the bike.
Dude, it was, again, I can't say I'm sorry enough for going to social media. I should have just DM'd you and called you stupid as fuck. I'm sorry. But at the same time, I am not sorry for these matchups because holy fuck. I think there's a lot to talk about. And so, I tried to drop an episode because our time schedules were so wonky. The Zooms and my Wi-Fi and the B&B was wonky. And even, we got 50,000 reports that the audio sucked ass or didn't even appear. And so I'm going to blame the European Union and socialism for that, but I'll give them some credit on the back end. But holy cow.
What was the biggest highlight of my kind of fuck up with those matches? Because I remember you coming back and being like, "Oh my God, Chris, you missed about these matchups," and I can't remember which ones came down to the very last minute.
So first off, you did the wrong fucking region.
Right. But nonetheless, the region played.
That you did do, Mile High Life, and we'll dive into how we're going to make it up to it. Luckily, they kind of like us over there at Mile High Life, so we're in good favor with them. But what you did post was one that really tickled my pickle, was the Right Cream Poulette. Because I feel like not only is Right Cream, obviously they made it the furthest of any of the sweet eats, but they're probably one of the better sweet eats in the city. There's a reason they made it in here, but they're so fucking good. And Poulette, the bakery out of Parker, is a first timer as well. And we're seeing great numbers of support for local restaurants and bakeries and things of that nature, ice cream parlors, that we didn't see last year, but we don't see every day when we post shit on the story or on the feed. So, and that one didn't necessarily go down to the wire, but we saw such a large, enthusiastic engagement of, it was like Sophie's Choice, which I don't know if you know about, but it's about killing kids.
So remind me again, who out of the sweets is still left?
So for those who are listening, we've already we've run through our round of the second round, and there are no more sweets.
No more sweets. But I love the fact that we did include sweets this year, just because I wanted that in there really badly, and I'm glad we did that. Just because sweets do play a big part in this community. And I think with Right Cream's creativity and kind of thinking outside of the box is awesome. And then Poulette, the following their French technique, everybody goes there. There's never not a line in Parker.
Yeah, which is brutally ironic because usually the only lines in Parker you see are like those like storm, the city capitol or whatever it may be. But I couldn't agree. You really were one of the flag, you carried the flag for the sweet eats of, hey, I put this at the top of my stoner eats, and you weren't alone. I can't remember if it was Denise or Jeremy or maybe Nam or whomever it may have been, that Alex, whomever it was, like it takes two. One person can't get somebody into the bracket. You needed more than 8 points. So Right Cream was deservedly there, but what they did was they set a foundation, and it kind of reminds you of like Boise State going to a BCS bowl game and beating Oklahoma. Like they went in there and they beat fucking Bruto, and it reminds folks that, yeah, we're not just savory competition over here. Stoner Eats goes the whole gamut of what time or what season. And I think that really represents Denver beautifully, because it's not just Right Cream, which obviously they were in there, as was Not Your Mama's Cupcakes, who do great fucking cupcakes, and those icings. Heavens to Betsy. But there's people lining up outside of ice cream shops around Denver, no matter the fucking temperature, no matter the season. And so I think that omitting those, and had it been
they'll be
year,
back next year.
Oh, I have no doubt. And I imagine we'll probably see more, and we'll have more representation of the sweet eats. But Right Cream versus Poulette was a great one, because those were two new genres that we had kind of introduced. And we saw it wasn't just them. Through the round of 32, Reunion Bread actually made a fucking run as well, and we had a couple other folks, obviously Reunion lost to Redeemer, which in a stoner's fucking food matchup, it's going to be pretty tough to beat a pizza place. But at the same time, we had representation from, that other aspects that we would otherwise kind of forget when talking about some of the best. And so I know somebody, we mentioned it on this pod. It's a 2-part game. You have to serve dank food, but you also have to play a social game. It's like Survivor. Yeah. It's very much like Survivor.
And that's what people need to understand is like, we're not like the categories and matchups where you have like a fine dining restaurant against a bakery or whatever it may be. It's about the community. So whether or not on any given day, I love Tavernetta. But if it was facing a sweets that I love, and that day I was feeling sweetie, I might have gone with the sweets. So it's not, we aren't here to say like, oh, this place is better than that place. It's what does the community like, and how did the restaurant get behind their community base?
I wish that we could like ball that message up and not shove it in your vagina, but instead shove it into the mouth of the people in our DMs, because people are in my fucking ear, Chris. A lot of people were there to stick up for you, and they're like, hey, man, give him a break. He has to wear a helmet to work. It's his first time. But there are a lot of people like, how the fuck are we supposed to compare Bakery 4 to Tavernetta? And I was like, my man's. Like, I'm not telling you to pick who has better fresh fish from Tamaki Den and Kike's. I'm saying, what's your vibe?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we run this podcast, how we run this social media page. And the reason that are lucky enough to do it is, what's your vibe? And we try to support all the vibes. And so I thought we've done fairly well with that, but we've seen a couple outliers that I was a little surprised with. And I think if we had a larger community, and I may have spoken about it on our last episode, about how maybe if everybody was able to see what everyone else was doing so that we can kind of like polish off the turd of making sure the top 8 make it, it would make it a little bit of a smoother, it'd be less ambiguous, I believe would be the best way to describe it. But, we have a fair representation, but I'll tell you right now, Chris, the Bar Green Ellingson region is, if that was the final 16 was their region, I would have been like, yeah, that's just, was, that one was so loaded. And because I did the numbers, and then because of how the points were skewed, it just ended up being the heaviest fucking bracket in the world. It's like talking about the West this year with having UCLA, Gonzaga, TCU, and Kansas as your 1 seed. That's exactly what we're talking about in this conversation. You know, like, we didn't do this. Obviously,
Right.
the NCAA is dirty as filth.
So
But that, like, it's just been a wild turn of events. I was kind of surprised Chook Chicken has made a run, and I'm slightly surprised that Star Kitchen is just destroying the competition.
yeah, well, I mean,
Beating Brixton, because last year Brixton made a killer run through the Euro region, and we're seeing a lot. There's
our
a large,
champions, our last year's champions out.
That is very true, and that kind of leads to what I was about to say. And we're seeing a larger representation of Asian cuisine in our final 16, which I'm not hating on. You and I both love the Asian food here in Denver because they're at least cooking with a little bit of passion and
Yeah.
a lot of fucking spice.
That's so one thing you
Minus
just
the
said is
buns.
you were surprised about Shoot Chicken. I mean, it's a fucking solid meal. I love
I know,
that
but I
place.
didn't see him coming out and like putting up a fight through a round. Like, I thought.
You
know,
misunderstand the
I thought they were gonna be a
ease of
Mississippi
going
State.
and grabbing a rotisserie chicken.
I thought they were going
Or-
to be like a Mississippi State.
Yeah.
But you are right. The one in the hand is worth two in the bush, as well as approachability is what we're seeing is a very large thing. And so I didn't mean to. I kind of stepped on Beacon and a couple other of the fine dining spots by when they got upset by like folks like Reunion. That was not my intention. But approachability is a very big thing, and reminding everybody, like, not everybody has the ability to do chef's tasting menus, but everybody can have an Instagram page. And if you're able to have a morning bun or a croissant for $3, then you can speak to that food. Whereas if you haven't spoken to the other, you're like, well, by default, I'll choose the one I've had.
So
But I like shaking it up. I like the mixing up, despite the fact that I have to deal with a bunch of fucking morons in our DMs. And now I see why, like, our buddy Jeremy Jacobowitz out of New York, who has, millions of followers, he's like, it's exhausting. We just hit like 26 or 27,000. And we already have people who don't follow us who are like, yuck, this place? And I'm like, who the fuck are you? Let us just have fun and show love to the restaurants that we appreciate.
yeah.
It's exhausting a little bit.
So what's going on with today's matchups?
So for those that are listening, we're actually in the home stretch of the Bar Green Ellingson region. For this aspect, we've seen such a large turnout and a great social media support that some of these restaurants are playing the pro game. Like, it almost reminds you of Boston Rob from Survivor. Like, we keep bipping and bopping from reality TV show to random sports references and things of that nature. But it's not just a one-step game. Survivor's not just a social. It's outwit, outplay, outsmart. And in this instance, in our March Madness bracket, it's not just 60 minutes for the next 60 years of your life. Shout out Bud Kilmer.
You're giving all sorts of
But
crazy
that's what it
references
is.
here.
But that's what it's like. There's multiple facets that you have to play. So, like, don't be surprised when you see someone, you're like, how the fuck are they beating this restaurant or that restaurant?
Yeah, like right now, Bakery 4 is ahead of Tavernetta. We've got...
I had Little Arthur's beating Blue Pan, and I think one thing that we've seen out of that is that that's the premier stoner snacking.
Yeah.
Denver's best pizza versus, I'll say, one of Denver's best sandwiches, because AJ from Little Arthur's put me on my other favorite sandwich at Carmine Leonardo's, which was my number one seed when I did my pre-rankings, but nobody else had them, so they didn't make the cut.
Right.
And so, that was just such a brutal fucking bracket, but I thought that was a perfect, like, example of what we're trying to do is just like stonerisms,
Yeah, and it's all in the name of fun, so nobody needs to get upset about it. Don't even worry about it. We're all here for fun.
Facts. All right, so Chris, before we kind of navigate towards Spannabis and other debaucherous bullshit, I remember you had La Diabla. I believe you had Yuan Wonton. You had Hop Alley, and then you had Tavernetta. So you may be out of competition, but it looks like Kip is going to be out of competition as well, because while I had Softa coming through the Cali's region, I had Little Arthur's coming through the Bar Green, and they just ran into a buzzsaw of dank-ass pizza. So Both of us will be sitting on the sidelines. Do you think somebody's going to hit the 4-pack?
I don't know.
I'm not sorting through 400 comments at this moment, but odds, like from how you've seen the voting perspective, would you expect to see somebody have all 4 properly correct? I mean, Warren Buffett used to jerk people off if they could get a whole.
I doubt it.
Okay. The haters of the day. I love it. I love it. All right, Chris. So before we get going, we have a whole new region that starts this Monday. And so obviously we've been doing Cali's region, and then fucking Chris did the Mile High Life region, and then Mr. B's. But we were doing one region at a time. So starting this coming Monday, you'll hear a podcast drop Monday as well. The Sweet 16 will actually have 2 regions going against one another at the same day. So we will do the Callies in the Mile High Life region this coming Monday. Kip will do it. And on Tuesday, we'll have Mr. B's and Bar Green doing their Sweet 16. So we'll have 4 matchups both days, Monday and Tuesday. We'll take the winners from Monday and Tuesday, and they'll be right back at it in the Elite 8 on Wednesday and Thursday. The following week, we'll do the Final 4 in the championship.
It's going to be wild.
$1,000 store credit from our friends at Bar Green for the winner. Mr. B's has $1,000 worth of booze for the restaurant to celebrate. Cali's Cannabis has a large bag of smoke for the staff to enjoy. And we will give them promotional advertising for free on Mile High Life. I'm announcing that right now because of our bonehead mistake, aka Kips bonehead mistake. We will do free promotion on Mile High Life's social page for the winner. And we got a new caveat, Chris.
What's that?
The 4 teams that make the Final 4 will all be given a gift care package from our friends at a company called Potency 710. They've heard us talk about it on the podcast before. They do skin cream, CBD creams, things like that. They have a burn gel that you can leave just, squeeze gel like what you use to masturbate every day.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give them to every kitchen for casual grease burns just for the staff to have. So every team that qualifies for the Final 4, Potency 710 has a gift for them. Isn't that neat? Okay, well, that's enough of that. We've been 20 minutes deep. Let's dive into whatever the fuck I've been doing.
So let's keep this on point. What was Spannabis like?
All right, so you remember when I did MJ Biz?
Yeah, out in Vegas.
Yeah, and so I did a bunch of interviews with guests there because we had like a media thing. Shout out to our friends at Grasslands. This one was so much more chaotic in that it was a great fucking scene. The crowd was wonderful. They showed out in droves from local scene, like consumers and business owners alike. But if you're not necessarily a business owner or someone that's either shopping or looking to see where the market's going in the future, like if you're just, average Joe Blow that loves fucking weed and there's a weed conference in your town, it would tickle your pickle because you can smoke weed when you're there, but no one's giving you weed. Like it's not like,
people are
come
just
up
walking
to a
around
bar.
smoking their own weed.
Yeah. And so in Europe and Spain specifically, here's how it breaks down. It's federally illegal. It's very much a Bill Clinton, don't ask, don't tell type situation where they have these private clubs, speakeasy type scenes that for this whole week they host events where you can get in as kind of a public member rather than being a club member. So it was like $10, or sometimes you're on the guest list. Sometimes there's a dinner party that's a hash pairing, kind of like Groovy Gravy or like the Workbench dinners that we have here in Denver. But for the most part, Spannabis, it's a neckbeard crowd, Chris. The smells are atrocious.
We got some dirty Spaniards?
It's not Spaniards. There are Spaniards, obviously, tons of brands and companies there, but it's awesome because you don't know all the languages, but they're people from all over the world. I met folks from Thai weed companies. I met folks that are American weed companies. I ran into our buddies from Blazy Susan. But the best part is that everyone's kind of there to row together. Like, let's move the industry forward as a group, like-minded, in the right mindset kind of vibe. But if the objective for you was to go there and just get like fucking torched at Spannabis, yeah, you can do it. Like, we brought our own weed in, and I flew with my own cannabis, and I got fuck tons of weed while I was there. But that's not what Spannabis is about. It's about uniting companies, buyers and sellers.
Yeah,
movers with shakers.
Trying to really kind of get some momentum behind the movement over across the pond.
Yeah, and so one thing, like when I was speaking with a bunch of folks, and you'll see these videos on our YouTube page whenever God helps us edit. Shout out to Fearberg and Sora Digital. We love those guys. But like that's we got to meet a lot of folks that are doing really cool shit in the community, but like a lot of the Euro companies, they were like, this is an HHC or a CBD pen, or, like what we call Delta 8s and Delta 9s that you see are sold that are across like the Southeast, or like you hear fucking 3Chi on every goddamn podcast. That's kind of the vibe. Like, it's all CBD flower too.
So a couple questions.
Shoot.
So was this like in like a big convention center? What was like the setup like? Was it?
So they have this big like pyramid. You remember the pyramid that is now a Bass Pro in Memphis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
So
place.
not as cool as that. There's no river running through it, but it's like that. And then you go outside where it's like smoke friendly, and there's like a bunch of grassy knolls where you could kill a Kennedy. But there's 4 different halls, and they may have had a theme to them, but like one of them was like machinery. One of them was papers and filters. And then some were like CBD cartridges, like rows. So like you'd see like different like themes on rows and things like that. But there's a litany of quite literally everything like you couldn't even fucking imagine. But it's huge.
Was it mainly like Spanish companies representing over there, or was it a lot of American type?
It was a hodgepodge, I would say. So there's I'll give it 20% Spanish companies. And
were
that's
there people from other European regions, like with their companies there?
Hundreds.
Like Amsterdam?
Oh yeah. The Dutch, Copenhagen based, Denmark was very prominent. The Germans were there, which we just saw. They legalized today through their process of I don't even know what fucking government they do over there.
I want to say if there's one thing with the Germans legalizing weed, they're probably going to cook up some pretty good weed.
I don't think you should use the word cook in the Germans thing.
Oh, well, they're going to make some pretty good weed. They've got good scientists and stuff.
Okay, so that is my one thing, and after speaking with folks that live there, and we see it more in like your everyday lifestyle like we do in our lives, like with food, booze, and things of that nature, is the further south you go, it's a little less capitalistic. So if the Germans are spearheading it, they're going to fucking ruin it. But at the same time, the Spanish, have this foundation already built with these clubs where you can do and buy, grow your THC, showcase it to other folks in the clubs in a safe space, which, we see at Jad's and Tetra here, but they also serve booze there. So like, there's a lot of people that define their personality by cannabis at these events, which we don't do. Like I use Spannabis as an excuse for a work trip to go fucking eat and party in Spain, And so the Spaniards or the Spanish, I don't know how you would say it, but they were very well represented, and then they were unbelievably welcoming hosts. All of the cannabis clubs, Chris, they're fucking awesome. Like, the people are great. The people that run the show are awesome. I hit up Auto Flower World Cup. Shout out to Arnaud. Shout out to our friend Nick for hooking us up, making sure that we were taken care of and all of those things. But it's a scene. Like, it's And it's a cool vibe, like especially if like you just wanted a safe place to puff tough and not get in trouble, because we did have those experiences. Let's say late at night, we were out and about at a bar with owners of cannabis brands, and they were like, "Hey, we can't smoke weed out here in the causeway or walkway, alley, whatever you want to call it. Let's dip down here into my grow house, basement and." Get into some sauce. And so like they're unbelievably welcoming, but they're playing by a different set of rules, which I don't hate, but they're playing by their set of rules, which I respect. And so they're making it happen, and they're doing a lot of cool shit. And what they're doing is they're making it so that the next realm of people coming through aren't the venture capitalists. I think I saw the dude from Honeybee Collective once say, I'm at events and it's more suits than it is hoodies.
Yeah.
That ain't the scene there yet. And so, while I'm not saying that it's going to be a $65, eighth of weed because the price, they can dictate their price. It may be, for the retail on a regular basis. But what they are doing is they're creating a market and a community where they are already there supporting one another. But I mean, obviously, that as a barrister from living abroad, that it's very community driven in all aspects of life. Like you go to this guy for your meats, this guy for your, or this guy, generically, like,
right.
You go to this shop for this,
yeah.
and this. So you build that like relationship and that community, already it's entrenched. And so they're doing that with cannabis, which I think is great. And, I made the joke about the socialists earlier. Capitalism is the fucking worst. And you see it firsthand when you go over and watch like an emerging industry coexist with, technically their competition, which would be like, the bars next door or whatever like that. But that's not how it is. It's very cohesive in how they all exist or, coexist. So Spannabis itself, the crowd is fucking hysterical. Like Colorado big game wook hunter would have scored so many points. And you'll see a lot of those videos and pics to come as we continue to drop these episodes, because we're not going to drop that dank food until we drop these dank episodes. But Spannabis was gnarly. I would say, I think they said 150,000. I don't know what that means if their number translates to ours, but it's fucking wild.
So where do you see like, what's the next big thing for Spain in terms of like cannabis? Did you get a sense of like what's kind of the next step? Yeah.
It's psilocybin.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There were symposiums. They were talking about how much money has been reallocated to research for psilocybin purposes, and how they kind of see them as hand in hand, because how they approach cannabis and drug use in general over there is harm reduction. A friend of ours, Shannon, who, remember I taught in her class, she works for the city. She also works for Metro University and the hospitality. She was there as an ambassador because she works with the med program here. And she even mentioned, she was like, the number one focus there is harm reduction. Right. And so it's not like there was never a war on drugs like Reagan waged here in the States.
It's kind of like Portugal. Like Portugal's like a big
in that same camp.
harm reduction, and that's a mindset. That's I think where we're missing the boat on harm reduction is just because we think it's wrong. Like people in the U.S. can't get over like drugs are bad because we've been told that from day one. If you do drugs, you're not going to go anywhere in life. You're not going to be this, and so like. People view us as allowing people to do drugs in a safe space as some kind of like terrible idea. And in Europe, it's like, if people are going to do these things, let's help them or give them resources, make it safer.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I don't know the mindset, and I won't speak for the Europeans, but you're exactly right. Like, we look at somebody that's, whether coming in or out of rehab, as like a harmed human that's like, oh, look at them. Whereas it's like, fuck yeah, look at them. They're you battled something that was crazy, and you know, there are these avenues to wean off. Like, they don't have to worry about fentanyl and their other things because it starts at harm reduction.
Right.
And so, like, if the objective is to avoid putting people in harmful situations, even if you're a coke or meth or whatever dealer, I don't know what's prominent over there.
Right.
They're not like, we can turn this 28 grams of an ounce into fucking 50 if we just chop it up with some killer fucking fentanyl. It's not like that. Cannabis is obviously the smallest of that degree, but like, you see it even with like the homeless population. Like, people are like, how can we help, like, build, you know, the rising tide lifts all ships kind of vibe. And I think that comes with not being in a capitalistic society, because someone's like, go get a job, or why is this like, that's not how this works. It's a chemical imbalance that causes things, and they address those by understanding problems and how to resolve it.
So when you were saying, like, you think psilocybin is going to be big, do you think it's going to be big in the way, like, kind of like a therapeutic sense over there? Is that where you think it's headed, kind of? Or it's one of those things where it wasn't like research dollars were put in there, like, fucking put this square into a square hole. It was like, oh, this works with folks that are coming out of, you know, obviously we use it as a military crutch when we talk about it, but we see that there is, you know, obviously medicinal benefits of psilocybin, as well as, you know, THC and CBD and things of that nature, but they're not as villainized. Right.
And so harm reduction is the name of the game over there, but they were huge about allocating more resources to how psilocybin in the future could be there. In regards to the THC and the future in Europe, I think we're going to see probably more of a friendlier legislation across countries, because that was kind of the main talking point for everybody that was in the HHC conversation. Like, oh, if you have this cartridge, you can fly inter EU without being flagged because it's HHC. It shows it on the label. You know, it's kind of the similar situation we are with CBD. So I think that is kind of the goal with that, is to get it to a point of a status quo where we all are in the same boat, that, yeah, obviously THC is not the large evil that it's been portrayed through years of Western media and propaganda has shown. But psilocybin rehabilitation and the allocated dollars associated was a huge benefactor of such.
So what would you say, like, getting back to, like, the actual Spannabis event, what would you say was, like, the most fun about it? Or what was the biggest, the most surprising thing that happened? Okay,
so 95% of the people speak English, so you're not like a fish out of water over there. Everybody's unbelievably kind and welcoming. Obviously, it's a bunch of fucking salespeople that were like, oh, yeah, try our product, blah, 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 blah. But what they're also doing is just like, especially for the Spanish brands, but even for just like the Euro brands, they were like, oh, you're from the States. Like, tell us about you, you know, like asking questions is so much more fun. It's like giving gifts at Christmas rather than receiving them. Like, you see someone smile after you give a good gift, you're like, fuck yeah, I knocked that out of the park. You know, that's kind of the vibe that you see with them. And so it makes you feel like you're a part of the community. So like, yeah, like I smoke some of the blunt or some of the joint with you, but I'm not the guy that's going to hit a 1 gram fucking dab with those late night headies. You know, like that's not us, but I'm not pretending to be that guy, and they're accepting you of who you are, which is really fucking cool, especially in an event where it looks like a fucking dead show.
Really? So,
dude, the largest beaver tails I've ever seen.
So after, like, are we gonna dive into some of your other stuff, or are we holding that back? So,
no, Chris.
Because
One
thing I want to ask
out.
you about, obviously, lung darts are huge over there. Everybody loves the goddamn lung dart in Europe.
Marlboro Reds.
You gotta love it.
Blues.
But besides that, the one thing that caught my eye when you were gone that I saw was the kind of underground scene where you're at that skate part or whatever. Like, what was that all about?
Okay, so shout out to Adam. So we got, like, obviously, like, I probably do the same when I see one of our favorite, food or weed people are in New Orleans. I'm like, you got to try this. You got to try that. And so obviously I can't do it all. So what I posted a picture or a video of, hey, this is my street. And I stayed in the Gothic Square. So for anyone going to Barcelona or, trying to check it out, I can give you happily tips that I have. But a buddy of ours, Adam, was like, dude, you're not going to believe this, but you are literally like one fucking block from one of the best mojitos I've ever had in my life. And so I went over there, and it reminds you of, I think I called it the Foot Clan's bar from the first Ninja Turtles movie, that badass place where Robin, or April, whatever, her son was hanging out there. It's like that. Like, people are, skating around, but at night, people are just hanging out on the top of half pipes, and the whole wall's decked out. And like,
this is all indoors?
Oh, yeah. And it's like garden level, Chris. It's like our studio. Like, you're sitting there maybe a foot or two from the ceiling, and then looking down on you, there's 6 feet of like dug out earth where people could skate, or if you're just sitting there having cocktails, no one's skating, but there's fucking, pool and fucking ping pong.
So hold on, were people actively skating while you were there?
They were in like waves. So like when it was open, like whatever it is. So like the B&B host he grows cannabis. He invited us into his home. Shout out to Jean, or Juan, or Jean, I think is how you say it. He's a skateboarder. He's an urban skateboarder. I imagine that means that he does cooler shit than we do on YouTube and things of that nature. But he was like, yeah, it's a very big community. And so when we went to that bar, was it Neighbors or something of that nature? He was like, oh, fuck yeah, I love that place. You can go in there and like really like get wacky with it. You can probably go, do your Instagram videos. But they're everywhere. Like, people are just skateboarding everywhere. It's not a driving community. If you drive, it's like trying to drive in the middle of Mardi Gras would be the best way to describe it.
So the crazy thing is, though, is like, I'm trying to picture this full place. Like, so there's is it like a nice cocktail bar? Like,
Absolutely not, Chris. It's the best bar here to describe it would be like a dive in. Like, there's fucking like stickers all over the wall. Like, you can't. It's like the alley behind Denver Central Market inside.
But they make a hell of a mojito.
Unbelievable mojitos. So that's a cool thing that I'm excited to talk about. First off, shout out to our friends Morgan and Lizzie. Lizzie was our social media director. She gave us those insights 5 years ago when we started the company. Her and her husband, Morgan, now live in Barcelona. They work for, I think, Dutch companies, but nonetheless. So they showed us the lay of the land whenever they were kind of free to goof off. The bar scenes over there, Chris, you can go nice if you want to, but that's not our vibe.
No.
Like, yeah, I don't want to go to L5. I want to go get a fucking glass of wine and a hot dog at Yacht Club. Like, that's the vibe it is there. It's just fucking awesome. It's a divey scene. It's kind of like that neighborhood thing, like everyone kind of rows together in a boat, and so it's like, yeah, this bar has been around for 20 fucking years. Why? Because they do something great.
Yeah.
But one thing they've done crazy over there, which I didn't expect, was It's not a tequila community. It's not a mezcal community. It's not anything you have of a representation of Hispanic culture here is not that there. It's a fucking gin community, Chris.
People love gin.
Dude, I tell you what, I think I'm a gin guy. When you do shit like that, I'm a gin guy.
You've always kind of shied away from gin, and maybe it's because if you have a bad experience on gin, it can put you off for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I never had a good experience.
Oh, okay. Because gin's basically better tasting vodka.
I think that's literally what it is flavored vodka. Yeah. But like they have Palomas, which I drank a fair amount of, but it's like, if you're here, why are you not doing that? And
Their tonics and different things like that.
Like they have sangria, and so I was like, fuck yeah, I'll have that here. Or like kava with breakfast, which is not like the kava that we talked about with Chad over at the Karma House. It's totally different kava. But it's just a totally different scene. But I'm a gin guy now. Yeah. Officially a gin guy.
I love it. And gin's really good when it's hot. I'm just putting that out there. Gin and tonic.
Hot outside.
Yeah.
Chris, do you think you can make me if I go and buy all the proper ingredients, you can make some good G&Ts for us?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I know a brand that makes not only good G's, but good V's, good W's, and a couple other boozes as well. We may have to stock the bar and try out something because technically I'm worldly now.
Yeah, 100%. And actually,
this is my first time. I know you're a Euro guy, but this is my first time, and it was awesome.
But not really. You went to France.
Yeah, Chris, over there I just drink only red wine. This one, we didn't. I mean, we did wine, the natural wine scene. Shout out to our girl Wendy Lynn. Holy fuck. The natural wine game there.
Gangbusters.
Yeah, they're just bangers. And there's a bunch that, which I'm sure you know, and everyone that's listening to this that's done a lot of European travels, I have not. They were like, yeah, this doesn't leave the fucking country, much less like this neighborhood or whatever.
Right.
Oh, man. Fucking bangers, Chris. And when you pair it with a bread that's just been rubbed with garlic and tomatoes on top of it, bangers. And while I love Bakery 4, Poulet, Reunion, we spoke of her, things like that.
Yeah, it does.
Dude, fucking bread. Dude.
It's because they've been doing it like, it's kind of like the U.S. in soccer. Like we haven't been playing the game as long as everybody, and we haven't cared about it, kind of like, the European market, the Premier League, all that stuff. So, we aren't going to be that good. It's going to take a long time. And that's kind of where I feel like we are on bread game. Like, no doubt about it. There's great bakeries here and they make great stuff, but they're all trying to learn from the bakeries that have been doing it for centuries. I mean, like, I'm sure any baker in Denver will say, I look to the French, or I look, to learn these different skills. Yeah.
Carolyn, down at Poulet and Parker, she was trained French.
Yeah.
And she said that she interned in Spain after she finished school for a change of pace because the French are assholes, which everybody knows. But she was like, it's so great seeing people like cook with passion and precision. And so that's what they have across the whole region, because if you're bad at what you do, you're not there long,
And you know what? It's lost in the U.S. kind of this apprenticeship type stuff. People actually feel good about going into kind of different jobs and businesses in Europe where, they'll study under an apprenticeship and they'll learn. So it's just like constant knowledge being passed down. And over the years, they've perfected it.
I could not agree more, Chris. I think the soccer metaphor parallel was genius because they are obviously ahead of the game. Like the fucking B&B I stayed in was older than our goddamn country.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, it's like that apprenticeship, we only see it almost in trade schools here. And it's those people that work in the HVAC and the plumbing and the jobs that we see as, you know, as a community, similar to that of, you know, our restaurant hospitality industry of, oh, you're still a bartender, or, oh,
Yeah.
like, we don't have this build up where over there they're like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm the bartender at this badass place. You know, like there is not that apprenticeship. We
Right.
only have it almost in the blue collar trade. And then those guys are fucking retiring at 45 or 50 here because they learned how to do it. They open their own business and they do their jobs well. That's that over there.
Yeah.
Even for basic things like a $2 croissant.
And I also think it kind of goes back to, you know, farming and food standards in Europe. It's much higher than it is in the U.S. And like you have
Tobacco too.
You have people like Kelly Whitaker and them that are getting back into the grains and all these different things. And that all builds better product. But over there you have that's
It's
just
everywhere.
built in.
That is it. And you are exactly right. Like we see it on fucking like Puberty and Food Beast that the cheese that Domino's uses is not considered cheese. And even fucking England, which they just fucking eat beans. And they're like, yeah, we're not eating American, whatever that is, cheese. And you see it, but you also taste it. And there's obviously, it's not the, recency bias or like the, oh, I'm abroad, I'm on a vacation bias.
Right.
Is just genuinely better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, coming from Colorado, it's a different ball game because as we dive a little bit more into the food scene, I'll say that I probably have gout. I have the hurt hand from last fall. I texted the girlfriend like halfway through the trip. I was like, my arm is hurting. She's like, it's probably your fucking diet.
I thought gout primarily affects the feet.
It does, but it affects joints. And so if you perhaps have like sewn apart joints and tendons, it causes inflammation in those places. And so not only did my feet fucking swell, but my hands did as well. And the left hand was exacerbated compared to the right.
Did it look like my sausage fingers almost?
No. I'm not fucking Italian.
But hold on though, with gout, once you got it,
you got it. It's like herpes.
Okay, that's what I was
there's
thinking.
medicine that keeps the flare-ups down. I think it's similar to what my dog is taking now for his arthritis, but I don't know if I actually have gout. I probably have a lot of fucking problems with my body, but it's kind of one of those Bill Clinton's, let's not ask. But realistically, they do things just differently there. But the reason they do things differently there is because their system is set up to make sure that fucking Kroger doesn't win. You know, like, yeah, there are crushed cans of tomatoes and things of that nature, dried pasta in a bag and box that you can buy, you know, but you shop for a day or two.
Right.
You know, so like things aren't meant to be kept long in the fridge or long on the shelf. And that's how I kind of shop. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm craving fucking Asian. I'm getting Asian food I'm going to H Mart today, you know, but like, we shouldn't have cuttlefish, the same cuttlefish, you know, on ice 2 days in a row. Like, it's a different ball game over there, but they also have those things in place to make sure, you know, the government makes sure that they don't price out their local, you know, practitioners.
And I also think that gets into like more of just the general culture there is the fact that like because those businesses have been around for so long, you establish a relationship. So you're like, oh, I finished work today. I'm going to swing by here and pick up this for tonight. I'm going to swing by there. And you're also going to say hey to the people you're getting it from. Whereas here, we're going to the grocery store. We're like, fuck, I got to pay this. And there's no relationship. We have self-checkouts. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you aren't going, when you want to go get fish to cook at night, you're going to go to a fishmonger. And it's probably the guy you've been going to or your family's been going to for years.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Morgan, the buddy I referenced earlier, but one thing he referenced that he kind of misses, he's been gone 5-6 years, so he's lived in Germany and Holland, and they now are settled in Spain, and they're happy as clams. But one thing he was like, not only do I miss Hop Alley, like literally, that was like, he was like, I fucking miss Hop Alley. But he was like, sometimes you wish you were like, I could just stop in one grocery store and grab whatever I need rather than going to meat guy, bread guy, whatever. But that leads me to the next thing, which is I fucking love mercados. And I think I said the same thing after I came back from Mexico.
Yeah.
How could you not love fucking open air markets? Oh my God, Chris.
Just walking through them. It's fun.
Not only walking through them, but just like, hey, can I post up? Grab 3 oysters for $8. Oh, a plate of Iberico. Oh, okay, $10. Okay, so this and a beer, the whole thing, we'll just give it to you for $20. I was like, $20, oysters, whole plate of ham, beer. They're like, yeah, man, pay us. I was like, here you go. Fuck yeah. I thought I was robbing them. Literally, and then, but across the alley is another person slinging fucking seafood and ham as well. The ham is everywhere. The Iberico is, I mean, I get it. It melts on your mouth. I left it in the fridge at the B&B. I WhatsApped the guy that owns the place. I was like, hey man, there's like $70 worth of fucking ham in your refrigerator. I also left you a vape cartridge and a Xanax. So thanks.
See, isn't it crazy though? Like, just like that ham tastes so good just because they're so stringent about the way they carry their livestock, the way they do that. Like we over here, we're mass producing. So and you have your small one-offs that are doing great things like that. But over there, they have like free ranging, they eat all yeah. And so like, oh my God, it's just fucking nuts.
And then, I mean, obviously I'm the first guy to sit here and fucking complain and be like, damn, that was fucking expensive. But you mentioned it earlier, and I think this is worth mentioning, is Kelly Whitaker. It seems that he gets a lot of guff because his restaurants, and I'm probably one of those guys that probably shouldn't. And as I grow with my eyes and palate, he's one of those people, he's like, I'm not going to shortchange you.
Right.
And he's not bending you over the fucking barrel. He's just trying to make a livelihood for he and his staff, but he's not going to cut corners and be like, oh, well, Kroger had this fucking, Costco's Iberico that was already set up in a fucking rack. It was only $100, so we're doing Iberico ham. That's not how he plays his game, but that's how they all play their game over there. So, like, you see it sometimes here, and we kind of, like, turn our nose like, the fuck, as an American society, but it's because we come from this level of what is the value of the price point. And so we need to start realizing, and we have some friends that do it, but if we spend more money now on better products that are less preservatives, even if it comes down to the weed we smoke, the alcohol we drink being, biodynamic, things of that nature, all the way down to the things we eat, we're not going to be paying for it on the back end when we see a lot of these people, because Americans have 3 times the likelihood of fucking cancer or
obesity.
No, the obesity, we're not going to shake that. And you won't shake that if your parents are fucking giving you, maple, whatever fucking syrup we give you with your breakfast, which I get it. It's a hard trend to buck. And I don't think we're going to be able to do it here until after our next civil war. So that's an interesting, because at that point we'll be in factions where we won't be trading with one another. So luckily for us, we're near a lot of farmland here in Wyoming, Montana, and we have a lot of great people doing gnarly stuff in the meat game. And so I know we have some really cool sponsors for the spring and summer coming up. We need to find someone that's doing quality meats so that when we're grilling this summer, that we're not, like, I eat fucking Costco hot dogs and Popeyes, Chris. I eat fucking Popeyes in Barcelona. We'll talk about that next. But if we can do, for every time we eat a fucking bullshit processed dish, if we can have 2 dishes that aren't that, you know, like our friends at the Easy Vegan said, I don't need you to be vegan every day. I just need you to cut out the shitty processed meat once a week, and we'll work on the second one then. We got to do it. But when the food is that fucking good, it's very easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's so goddamn cheap. God damn it, I hate this country. I love it too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I missed it. I mean, I was ready to get back and yell at you. Missed the girlfriend. Jerry's in a whole heap of shit, which we talked about on social media. But, I mean, I can't recommend enough, not only Spain, but if you go for, like, I was there for a work thing. I wanted to do the Bourdain thing. I want to be the guy that goes and puts you on dank-ass dive food. So I didn't, like, everyone was like, go see Kenyette, which is, like, the bee's knees in the tourist area. And we didn't do it. But what we did do was I had a friend, shout out to Roger, shout out to our buddy Ross James for putting us together. Roger, and you'll see him in the video tomorrow, Roger took me and a buddy, Samantha. She runs the Grow Off. The Grow Off is the largest cannabis competition in the world. You remember John from Growlytics, who was at our Cajun dinner, who had the belts? That's hers. So she was there with Shannon and a bunch of folks as well. So we all got to go out with Roger. Roger took us to, let's say that this one's like a spray painted t-shirt store, and on the other side is like a fucking Barcelona soccer store, which is pretty much just like a messy jerk off shop. Right in the middle of that is just an fucking Aces restaurant that is unsuspecting. And it wasn't anyone that recommended this one. I got 75 people that tell me one spot is the greatest spot ever. Like, that's not what we're about. So Roger, I fucking love this man, Chris. I can't wait till you meet him. We're going back to visit his village just north. He's a Catalonian, fucking hates the Spanish government, which I can appreciate. Takes us to this restaurant. I don't know how we did it. It feels like you have like superpowers. You know, like we drink at elevation, so we go down to like fucking sea level. 4 bottles of wine. I'm scared to look at the video that's going to come out.
Red teeth?
I'm not even worried about that. Chris, though I did like selfie videos, and because they didn't like, you couldn't get a video up without Wi-Fi. Oh my God. I look like a fucking moron. I was like, oh yes, these didn't go up. Yes, thank God.
It happens.
It was like my FBI agent that stalks my phone was like, I got you, bro. I'm not going to let you fucking post that. I was blitzkrieg. And he somehow made it back to his village. I was like, how'd you do it? And he was like, this ain't no hobby, brother. The food was, the octopus, that's how you cook it.
Yeah.
And then the restaurants where you go and it's just like all raw fish or whatever. And they're like, what do you want? How do you want it cooked? And so if you don't know, they have the list for you. So you don't have to be some fucking aficionado. But I'm like, I want that fried. I want these mussels in a Thai sauce. I want this octopus Spanish grilled.
How late were you staying up? Because it's a late night scene.
I think I got like 20 hours of sleep in 5 days.
Solid.
Average sleep time 3:30. But the parties are, you don't even know it.
Yeah, you don't even.
You have no fucking clue that like, the 5 to 7 naps. I think their siestas are 3 to 5. But I was like, yeah, let's keep going. And they were like, yeah, man, we're fucking closing for an hour and a half, so we can get you out of our fucking bar. I tried to be the least amount of American as possible, but thanks to our friends at Be Fresh, the badass clothing store that's like primed for summer, they gave me some gnarly threads to wear while we were eating food. So I had like pizza, like tigers eating pizza on my shirt, which is a play off of a Gucci line, and some other ones. They were like, I wasn't that obnoxious American.
Right. Well done.
The Brits handled that beautifully. And it's holiday for so many folks that hate no sun in the northern region over there. So I was not that. But yeah, oh my God. 3 a.m. One night I passed out at like 11, and then I woke up at like 6 a.m. and I was like, what's going on? And nothing in the fucking city happens until 10 a.m. So I was like, might as well watch some television. And guess what, Chris? If you're in abroad, The Office is on Netflix. So I downloaded 2 full seasons because I was thinking I could watch them on the fly home. And then I got home and I was like, oh, Morgan, by the way, The Office is on Netflix over there because Peacock is not a fucking thing. Turns out they were like, yeah, you can't watch this.
When you got back?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like YouTube TV. Like I couldn't watch any.
Yeah.
I mean, I missed everything. So like I tried to talk about how you fucked up brutally earlier. I fucked up on behalf of Mile High Life. I posted one region that was playing here in Denver. And obviously there's another region playing here to fill the gap. And they were like, so you're just going to exclude Gonzaga? And I was like, please just give me a fucking break. I'm pissed drunk and I'm working my hardest over here. And it's 8 hours? And then it shifted to 7 hours because they don't play daylight savings time.
I forgot about that. When are we going to do away with that?
When we move this podcast abroad.
I'm down.
We'll just do home and homes. And so the idea that we have brewing, which we won't talk about because I don't want to tip it off to our 7,285 listeners from last week. We have something pretty fucking cool coming down the pike. And it's only going to cost the company $98,500.
That's not much at all.
No, it's not, Chris. No, it's not at all. So if you want to be a sponsor or a partner in this project and you're sitting on $100K that you're like, oh, I just hit big on Auburn beating Iowa, holler at your boys because we have something y'all are going to fucking love. All right, I'm done with that. We'll talk about
how deep are we into this episode? Have we lost most of our listeners by now, do you think? Or is this a two-parter? Where are we at? What do we have to cover?
We're at an hour on the dick, but it's fucking Friday. After 2 weeks, they haven't heard from us. And if you're going up to the mountains, maybe you appreciate an hour. You're sitting in fucking 70 traffic. I mean, I saw Barthley Pass had a fucking avalanche today.
That's true.
But speaking of going up the mountain, Chris, it's a weekend for it.
It is.
A lot of our friends went and hit the southern side. Taos, Wolf Creek got dumped on here at the late end of the week. But you know who's about to get dumped on?
Blackhawk,
Chris. That's right. Kip and Chris. Y'all have heard us do stupid gambling shit on the page in the past. We have a group chat with buddies from around the country. We've been gambling on sports since we were in fucking high school. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
Yeah.
The parallels between this podcast and sports should be uncanny for the regular listener. I make fun of Chris every single week for being a cousin fucker from Alabama, and he makes fun of us for being a poor, terrible athletic program out of Mississippi, which is very indicative of this week of sports here.
Except for baseball. You guys are pretty good.
Oh, yes, we are much better than you in that. And we hold like the top 15 records in history for just about fucking everything. But yeah, so we've been busting each other's balls since we've known each other. And it's starting to kind of come to fruition. Isn't that cool?
Yes. And so what are we doing? We're going up to Blackhawk. We're going to watch this shit on a bunch of screens. Cause I haven't been up to Blackhawk in I don't know, probably 10, 11 years.
When was the last time you were on an oxygen machine? Like the ones where they put the nasal.
They have that up there?
No, but everybody else does up there. And so we're actually headed up to the Caesars Sportsbook. We're teaming up with Caesars Sportsbook for this weekend. They'll probably give us about 8 hours before they kick us out. But what's actually happening is we're teaming up with Mile High Life and Mile High Sports. We have a VIP section reserved for us, Chris. And you can get in a giveaway if you're listening to this up until Friday evening. And we have a section reserved for us for Saturday viewing pleasure. Chris, myself, our buddy Elvis, and a couple other folks are all trekking up Saturday morning, 80 high noons in hand. We're going to sink them all before we get there. And then we're posting up in the VIP Sportsbook to watch the second round action. That's pretty much fucking dream worthy, is it not?
I love it.
We got a second part of this gnarly ass episode that's coming to y'all after we come back from the casino. So y'all stay tuned, and if y'all are looking for a good time, come check us out at Caesars Sportsbook this weekend. Also, shout out to our friends for our March Madness bracket, Bar Green Ellingson, Mr. B's Liquor, Callie's, and obviously Mile High Life. We appreciate it. Stay tuned for part 2 on the other side of the weekend.